This demonstration will cover the creation of reports in Microsoft Access. So if you recall from the last demonstration, we had this query that showed all the students who had passed their midterm and passed their final and lived in Ontario. I went ahead and saved that query and I called it Students Query. So let's open that up just to refresh your mind here. So we have 3 different columns showing the student ID, the name, and the province, and it's only showing those students who had passed both of their midterm and final and lived in Ontario. So we'll close this query and say we want to create a report based off this query. We can go to the Create ribbon, and under Reports we can click on the Report Wizard, which is the easiest way to create a report. If you create it from scratch, it takes quite a while, but the Report Wizard will lay everything out really nicely for you. So the first thing we need to do is choose where we're going to get the data from that's going to be shown in this report. So if we hit this drop down box here, you can see it's listing the students table and the students query that we just created. If we click on the table, you'll see that all the fields that were available in the table can be part of this report. Now if we want to base the report off of the query and only show the 7 students that were in the query, there's only 3 fields available because the query only had 3 fields available to it. So if we wanted more fields to be shown here, we'd have to go back to the query and modify it so that more fields were being shown. So we take these available fields and we move them over to the selected fields so they're actually shown in the report. So we can do that one at a time, or we can just hit the double arrow here and move everything over into this selected fields side, and we hit the next button to go on to the next step. This step here you can ignore. The feature of grouping in a report isn't covered in Computer Science 1701, so just keep the defaults and go to the next step. And then it's going to ask us how we want to sort this report. So we can sort this by name, and you can either choose ascending or descending. We'll go to the next step. You can leave it in a column layout or a table layout. We're going to leave ours in a table layout, but you can always come back and change this to see what the column layout looks like. And also you can change the orientation. So if you have a report that has a lot of fields and it gets really wide, you can change it to a landscape orientation so everything shows on the page. And here we can choose the visual style that we like. So you can pick the one that you like the best, and we'll use this one here, the flow style. And it's going to ask us for a name on the next step. So in this case here we can call it Students Report instead of Query. And once we're done, we can either preview the report or we can modify the report's design. Let's preview it, and then we can close that and we can go and actually modify the report's design after that. So we'll hit finish, and here is our first report. And the first thing you might notice is that the name has been cut off. Basically the column for the name hasn't been wide enough. And also it's added a couple of fields at the bottom of the page. Let me just scroll down. It automatically puts a date on the bottom of the report and also tells you what page number you're on. So this report here is something that you might print off and give to your boss. In the case of our example, if the academic dean came up and asked you for a list of all the students that passed both the final and the midterm and lived in Ontario, this is something that you might print off and give to him. So let's close the print preview and fix some of the errors on this. Now when you close it, it automatically goes into design view. Here we can modify the look of the report. So if you wanted to say take this text and we want to change the color of it, we can do that. Let's say we want it red, and say we want to make it a little bit bigger. We have to change the box that it's contained in first, and then we can change it to a larger size, something bigger. And now the name wasn't showing correctly, so if we choose name here, and you'll notice that these 2 boxes are linked together, so if you make a change to the one, it makes a change to the other one. So we only have to make a change to the top one or the bottom one. Let's choose the horizontal resize, and we'll drag that a little bit wider, maybe a little bit wider here just so everything fits. And now if you go back to the report view, which is this one here, report view, now the name column has been wider and it's showing the full names of the students. So if we go back to the design view, this is where you might think about putting in some company logos you can put up in the report header. All these different options up here. You can actually insert images, do all sorts of different formatting. When we're done with our report, if we close it, it's going to ask us to save it, save the changes. And now over here on the left pane, the student's report is here, and when we click on that, it's going to show the report. Now it's also important that these reports are dynamic, meaning that if something changes to the underlying data, your report is going to change also. So if we come back here, we go back to the students table. So this is where the data is being drawn from. It's actually being drawn from the query, which draws its data from the table. And we come back here and we change some grades. So say, who do we have here? We have Minnie Mouse received a 23 and a 12. So let's change those. Let's say that she got a 90% on both of those. And she also lives in Ontario. So let's close the table, and because those changes have been saved to the database, when we reopen the students report, there's one more student showing on this Minnie Mouse because she's from Ontario and because she passed both the midterm and final. So that concludes this demonstration on creating reports in Microsoft Access.